Hi, Andrew and William. It's nice to have you here. It's nice to meet you here over Zoom.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to be here.
Yes,
Mhm.
great to speak with you.
Yeah, I was on your website and I was reading about the Opus 2 duo, and you've traveled extensively on 6 continents, and you've done several recordings. Can you tell us a little bit about how the two of you met and how the two of you started collaborating together?
Sure. We were both faculty members at Brevard Music Center in the mountains of Western North Carolina 30 years ago. And I on piano, of course, and Bill on violin. And we formed a duo soon after that. And a couple of years later, we entered a competition sponsored by the US State Department called the Artistic Ambassador Program. And we were chosen winners of that, and we were sent to South America for 6, 7 weeks to do kind of outreach programs featuring American music. And we got the bug for travel and for performing together. And since then, we've made a number of recordings of single composer American discs, and the latest being Sondheim. I don't know if Bill has something to add, but
Well, yeah, and actually we toured quite a bit throughout the years, and when we played in Ghana and in Africa, that was our sixth continent.
Ah,
And so Andrew is still searching for that grand piano on Antarctica. So maybe at some point we'll make it seven. But we enjoy traveling, we enjoy touring, and actually the Artistic Ambassador Tour Andrew mentioned in '93, they wanted to promote American culture. And so we were the musicians component of that. And so we played a lot of American music, a lot of Copland and some Gershwin. And we also, part of the interview was that we speak about the music and are able to kind of hobnob with the embassy officials and ambassadors in all these countries and in the embassy officials. So we had a really great time. We just, as Andrew mentioned, we have the bug for travel and just kind of seeing the world and promoting American music. And so this is kind of
yeah.
the latest part of it.
So when you guys formed, was it a mandate of yours to promote and perform American music? Like, what is it that attracted you to American music specifically?
Well, Andrew, you want to go ahead and take that one?
the Artistic Ambassador Program does ask you to program some American music, since the ambassadors are representatives of the country. And that was the first time, I mean, it was early on in our performing together that we learned some American music. So I remember that we programmed the Aaron Copland violin sonata and some pieces by Paul Schoenfield, who is a composition professor at the University of Michigan, who writes some crazy far out music that's a lot of fun to play, and that we recorded. Yeah, so that's that. And I think when we played that music, of course, we also performed Brahms sonatas and Beethoven and all of the standard repertoire. But I think that we felt that maybe we have a special affinity for this music of our time and of our country. Something that's descriptive of whatever you might think music from or culture from the United States might be, maybe incorporating jazz or special rhythms or wide open spaces in the case of Copland, or musical theater in the sense of
Right.
case of Sondheim.
And speaking of Sondheim, your latest disc that came out last month is called A Little Night Music. It's a suite made up of music to come from Sondheim's musical, A Little Night Music. Can you tell us about how this project came about, William? Maybe can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, actually, this is the third in a series of kind of transcriptions from Broadway musicals by Eric Stern, who we met in 2007. And we were actually, for the Bernstein was our first single composer CD. And so we recorded some of his more serious classical works. There's a trio there's a sonata. I transcribed the clarinet sonata, which is probably one of Copland's more famous chamber works. And we wanted to round it out, but since Bernstein had the two affinities, both for classical, so he was a great conductor, the pianist, but also West Side Story, which has just been remade into a new movie,
Right.
remake from the '62 movie, but of course the groundbreaking 1957 musical. And the year before that was Candide, of course, based on Moliere's play,
Right.
but it was Bernstein's musical take on it. And although it wasn't an incredible success at the time as a Broadway show, the music is wonderful. And so we asked Eric to actually choose the music. So he actually chose the music. He says, "What Candide is a great show, and of course it has the famous aria Glitter and Be Gay, which is kind of a virtuosic, for the coloratura soprano, and it turns into a virtuosic tour de force for both violin and piano." And so that was kind of the first in the series. And he also transcribed two songs with voice and violin and piano.
Wow.
And My House and Take Care of This House from two different shows, one from Peter Pan of 1950 and one of the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue of 1976. So they're both having to do with houses. So, and then our next project was Gershwin. We made an all Gershwin CD, and we played all of Heifetz's transcriptions of that. And we thought, well, we asked Eric again, since we loved his Candide transcription for us that he did for us. So he did one from Girl Crazy, 4 songs from Girl Crazy, which is is a medley, and it's got great tunes, but not for me. I Got Rhythm and Embraceable You, and so all the great standards that you associate with Gershwin. Right. And that's all in one suite. So that's on our Gershwin album. So then we came back yet again and say, well, we'd love to do something with Sondheim. And at first we had some trepidation. Well, Sondheim's lyrics are so intertwined with the music and the phrasing and the emotion. If you strip them away, will they have the same meaning? And Eric said, I disagree. I think his music stands really beautifully on its own. So, so he arranged this what we love, this wonderful, wonderful suite for us.
Yeah, and I've listened to it yesterday, and it's remarkable. It's only it's 14 minutes. The album is essentially, I guess you'd call it an EP, I guess, but it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. What is it about Eric Stern's arrangements that you particularly enjoy, Andrew? Like, how does he write for the piano that you obviously find so attractive?
Eric is a wonderful composer and transcriber, and he, in terms of Broadway music, he really lives and breathes this music. He was a longtime conductor and music director on Broadway, knew all the composers, knew Sondheim very well, and worked together many times. And so he knows the music really well. He's also a very good pianist himself. And so he writes very naturally and virtuosically and lyrically for the piano. And he writes very well for the violin as well. You may have heard of Mitchell Stern, who was violinist with the American Quartet, and Mitchell was Eric's brother. So he grew up listening to violin music and so on. Eric isn't a violinist, but he's also happy to have Bill's input when, kind of fine-tuning the violin part and maybe making something a little bit more virtuosic or adding double stops or
changing octaves. Well, that was a thing that Eric was just really great about. He already laid some great stuff for the violin, and I just kind of tweaked it a little bit here and there. Well, what if we add octaves to that passage, or maybe that could be in thirds, or maybe jump the octave here and then come back down here. And so, and he was, really, great about sort of accommodating or, our wishes to kind of tailor it to our, our style of playing. But he got to sort of know our playing anyway. So that's kind of we feel like these are kind of custom tailored for our duo. So
the other thing is that Eric keeps in mind our duo nature. So both parts are treated equally. We pass the different material, between ourselves back and forth. And we think that he captures really well the sentiment, the drama, and so on of these shows. And we couldn't have been more delighted to have brought out this recording this year, actually in commemoration of Sondheim's 90th birthday, which was, we actually commissioned it for last year. And we were supposed to perform this music on Broadway at a wonderful intimate venue called 54 Below, which is a Broadway theater underneath a larger theater that used to be the infamous Studio 54 back in the day, was disco. Now it's a regular theater, and then underneath is an intimate space where a lot of Broadway singers come and do recital work, and occasionally they'll let a classical violin and piano infiltrate if they're playing music of interest to their particular audience. And so that got postponed from March of 2020 to just last month, November 2021. And Sondheim knew about the performance. He had thought about coming, but he wasn't able to come. And unfortunately, he passed away just 3 days after we played. So it was a very interesting week for us, very poignant.
Yeah, I was going to leave this till later on in the interview, but it's sort of the elephant in the room. I was on the website. The disc was released on November the 19th. Yes. Sondheim passed away on the 26th.
Yeah.
What was that like for the both of you? Was it at all awkward? Like, talk me through that. What did you guys feel? Bill, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, yeah, Andrew let me know. I was out doing yard work, and we had just been away, and we just got home.
From New York.
It was from New York. Yeah, we had just been in New York. The day after Thanksgiving, we came back, and I was out raking leaves in my yard, and Andrew said, "Have you heard?" And I said, "Heard what?" And he mentioned that Sondheim had passed away, and it just hit me. I was kind of sort of shocked and saddened, and it was a very poignant timing. And later that day, I wrote a long email to the faculty because I wanted to announce for those who might not have heard that Sondheim had passed away, and what an incredible influence he was in the history of American musical theater for the past 50, 60 years.
Absolutely.
And just kind of as a tribute, and just kind of how personally, we had just played his music. And also Eric knew Sondheim a little more, more of a friendly professional basis, but when he was sending us the copied emails to Sondheim about giving him permission for him to do the project, we felt very honored that he had listened to our recording, and he wanted to change the harmonies in 6 bars. And in fact, his instructions to Eric were, "Yeah, I give you my permission to arrange this music, but just don't change the harmonies." So, and Eric is very conscientious about making sure that it was true to the score. But I guess if the composer wants 6 bars changed in the arrangement, then he certainly should have that. So, but we just feel like I've been a fan of Sondheim's for years. I think that I'm especially fascinated in the incredibly productive period that 1970 was Company, a groundbreaking show. 1971 was Follies, another show I was like totally fascinated with. And of course, 1973, A Little Night Music. And when you think about within a span of 3 years, 3 very significant Broadway shows that are very challenging, both musically and emotionally and dramatically. So anyway, it was all kind of coming together. And And yes, so it was very poignant. I guess I'll let Andrew speak about his reaction as well. But
I wish that we could have met Sondheim personally, but we feel that we knew him at least secondhand. He knew about us. He heard our recording. He commented on it. He knew our arranger very well. And, we, as everyone, felt very closed in for a year and a half. And then, one of the first important concerts that we played after getting back out there again was this Sondheim Tribute in New York. And Eric Stern was there to introduce the music. And we did another piece of his for violin, piano, and song. Or singer, sorry. Elena Shadow, a Broadway actress, joined us on the song I Remember from Evening Primrose, which was a 1966 TV musical that Sondheim created. And very poignant lyrics there too. The character is trapped somehow in a department store. She's a young woman and she lives there with these other characters, and it's an odd plot, but she hasn't been able to leave the store since she was a little girl. And she sings about, I remember sky, I remember humanity, I remember nature, all the things that we used to have, which mean so much, I think, especially when you're in the midst of a pandemic or just, coming out of that. So we performed that with Elena. We do this a little night music. The next night while we were in New York, we went to see Company, a revival with Patti LuPone, and amazing cast. First show that we'd been to, this whole time. So dramatic, so exciting. And then we flew home, and, then that happened. So we feel that even though we didn't get to meet him personally, that Sondheim has had a major influence on our lives, really, emotionally and career-wise and so on.
Yeah, and the suite's amazing. It's in 5 sections. Bill, can you talk about the 5 tunes and the structure of the suite? It's very structured. It's sort of framed by this Knight Waltz, right?
yeah, so the Knight Waltz is kind of an introduction, and the characters are kind of talking about. It's based on an Ingmar Bergman film, "Smiles from a Summer Night," I think in 1955, and. What's interesting is that all of the music is in 3 or multiples of 3. And it's not only the waltz of the characters of the turn of the last century, you have to say turn of the last century, Sweden, Stockholm. And so everyone, if you've ever seen pictures of the show, everyone is beautifully dressed, and it's the upper classes, perhaps, of Stockholm society and their servants. So the Knight Waltz kind of binds the whole thing together, and it appears also at the end. And what Eric did so beautifully is that he captured each of the songs, the characters of the songs. For instance, the Knight Waltzes, they're singing about, sort of kind of symbolically about, a love and how the sun never sets, in the Scandinavian summer, and yet there's a restlessness and so there's all sorts of meanings with that. And it's also very elegant music, and Sondheim was an incredible chameleon. He could, reference styles of music from all different periods. And so there's a lot of operetta in this musical. So then the first actual dramatic song is "You Must Meet My Wife," which is actually Sondheim was great in that he could capture very sympathetically middle-aged characters as well as younger characters. And "You Must Meet My Wife" is, Desiree, the main female character. She's middle-aged. She had an affair with Friedrich, the main male character. So he proposed to her years ago. She turned him down. And so then he's coming back, and they meet up again. And yet he has a teenage wife, of course, very much young enough to be his daughter. And so "You Must Meet My Wife," as they're, he's talking very lovingly about how she makes him feel young, and that she answers sarcastically, well, are you crazy for marrying this very young woman? So, and then the next song is A Weekend in the Country. And there are all sorts of love triangles in this. It's a little bit too complicated to get involved with. But A Weekend in the Country is Desiree's mother, the main character. Her mother, who's been a very wealthy, she was a courtesan to many wealthy courts throughout Europe, and she has amassed this fortune. And so she's her daughter asked her to throw a big sort of festive sort of weekend in the country for all these characters who all show up, and all this drama ensues. But it's in 6/8, of course, a multiple of 3. And that's kind of the virtuosic centerpiece of the suite. It's all the various characters and all their various agendas, and they're it's a dialogue. It's a brilliant dialogue of all the various characters talking very quickly about the excitement of this weekend in the country and all the drama that will ensue. And then, of course,
I jump in on the next
and then
one, if you
Andrew
don't
can
mind?
jump in.
So Eric does an amazing job of weaving all of these songs together and creating this piece for violin and piano. And so the next song is Send in the Clowns, which was made popular by Judy Collins. It was recorded, I think, by Frank Sinatra and Barbara Streisand and Sarah Vaughan and many, many others. And I remember listening to it as a kid, as well. And the role was created by Glynis Johns. And it's sung by an aging actress who is thinking about lost opportunity, and she's thinking about where she is in her career as well. Sondheim does a great job of writing for middle-aged characters, and Johns didn't have the best voice or the most beautiful voice, but extremely expressive, and you could see why she was chosen by Sondheim, to sing this. And it's my favorite song to sing, to play. It's so beautiful, and I'm glad that as a pianist I get to do that. And then the Night Waltz comes back, right. And actually, what you can't see in the recording is that when we performed this live, at the very end, the Night Waltz kind of disappears up into the stratosphere. Bill plays a solo scale going higher and higher and higher. And then he reaches over and he plays the final chord on the piano, which is kind of a fun effect. It's indicated in the score, and it always gets a chuckle when the violinist plays the final chord on the piano. I kind of give him a look, anyway.
I know what chord to play. It's a F minor chord or F major, D flat major chord in first inversion.
He practiced that chord over and over.
Well, Andrew kept telling me, no, that's all wrong. You have to have a certain touch, and he was trying to. And of course, it's my left hand too, which has just been playing all this stuff, and then I reach over to the piano. But it's Eric is very clever. One thing that I do want to throw in about the final, of course, when it occurs in its first form in the play, Send in the Clowns, of course, is, as Andrew mentioned, it's a song of regret that, Send in the Clowns double meaning that we're all fools in love. And that also Send in the Clowns refers to when a play isn't going well, you send in the clowns to give it comic relief to save the performance, which is kind of, because you think such an expressive song that expresses such regret has such an odd title, but that's Sondheim. But at the very end of our version, of course, it has the tender kind of regret and sadness in the song. But at the end, Eric puts it in E major. They reprise both at the end, and I'll just kind of spoiler alert in the plot. Friedrich's teenage wife ends up with his son. Right. So they are paired off, which of course they are the same age. And then they end up, actually, Desiree and Friedrich do end up together, and they reprise Send in the Clowns, actually in a more sort of uplifting you know, rather than a song of regret, Sondheim transforms it. So that's when, in our recording, you hear it kind of going into a sort of uplifting E major after the sadness of the previous version. So he's kind of referencing when it comes back at the end of the musical.
Yeah, I mean, the suite's amazing. The duo's recorded the Sondheim, you've recorded Copland, Gershwin, Lowell Lieberman, which, by the way, is a CD I'd love to get my hands on. I love Lieberman's music.
Well, get it in your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next for the Opus 2 duo? Like maybe some Cole Porter or some Joan Tower? What next? What's the next American composer that you want to deal with?
Those are great ideas. Andrew, do you want to take that? Or?
You know, in other interviews that we've done about this recording, the common question has been that, but also specifically, what other Sondheim do you want to play? And so it's something that we hadn't really, thought about before. We've been enjoying, playing a little night music, but I think that that's one thing that we may have to get together with Eric and think about some other transcriptions, for that. But yeah, I think I'm sure that we'll continue exploring the American stage. We're also trying to, support this idea of expanding the classical literature, right now. And we just learned the George Walker Sonata No. 1, which was so fun and interesting to play. And I've been lecturing on George Walker, and we'll do a national presentation on his piano music as well. So he was the first African-American composer to win the Pulitzer Prize in music. And he was a friend of my teacher for my doctorate at Peabody, Walter Hautzig, and spent some time in Boulder. I'm on the faculty at the University of Colorado, so you hear his name. So it's just an example of a composer who we're kind of exploring right now.
Sounds great. I'm going to wrap the interview up this way. Where can people go to download this amazing suite, and where can they go to maybe perhaps get an actual physical copy of the recording?
For now, go ahead.
Well, I think it's through Bridge Records, and it only is available in a downloadable form since it's not attached to a complete CD. But we're hoping to create music around it to create a full-length CD. But right now, it just exists on its own.
And the recording is available through all the normal outlets such as Amazon and
Spotify.
What about iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of thing? Yeah, it's amazing. Andrew and William, this CD is just a great Sondheim, a little night music. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, and it's just been a wonderful opportunity. Thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having us, Chris. We hope your listeners enjoy listening.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they will. Thank you.
Great.